When you make more of everything else, you make less of Christ. Let's make more of Christ. Urban Family Talk.
Folks, quite frankly, this H.R. 5, this Tyranny Act, misnamed Equality Act, this is the whole ball of wax for religious freedom. I'm just going to tell you. This is the whole ball of wax. Now let's dig into it a little bit. So what is this Tyranny Act, this H.R. 5, this misnamed Equality Act? Because from here on out, you will not hear me refer to it as the Equality Act, because it is not about equality. It is about sexual deviancy supremacy and government tyranny. That is exactly what it is. And why am I saying that? Because the bill, and I'm going to read from the bill because people seem to take issue with what I say. I'm going to just read directly from the bill. What the bill does is that it seeks to redefine, or not redefine, but to create an additional set of protected classes based on sexual orientation and gender identity. Currently, the Equality Act prohibits discrimination in the Civil Rights Act of 1964 on the basis of sex, which was clearly understood to be man and woman, period. On the basis of sex, skin color, national origin, etc. This bill seeks to add sexual orientation and gender identity as additional categories for protected classes. And more specifically, it seeks to do so by creating a parenthetical in the law that wherever sex is read in the law, it must be now read to include sexual orientation and gender identity in the entire Civil Rights Act of 1964. That's what the law does. I'll read it straight from the legislation. An explicit, this is for those who are following along, because I posted the legislation on my social media pages a while back. Page 6 of H.R. 5, starting at line 25, says this, quote, an explicit and comprehensive national solution is needed to address such discrimination, including the full range of remedies available under the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Can I get any more specific than that? That starts from page 6, line 25, and goes over to page 7, line 3. The full range of remedies available under the Civil Rights Act of 1964. I'll give you another example straight from the law. For example, in the public accommodation section of the bill, on page 11, starting on line 20, where the subheading is section 3, public accommodations. All right. Page 11, line 21, quote, prohibition on discrimination or segregation in public accommodations. Section 201 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, 42 U.S. Code 2000A, is amended in subsection A by inserting sex, open parentheses, including sexual orientation and gender identity, close parentheses, before national origin. Is that clear enough? Because someone tried to debate me. That's not what it's doing, Abraham. It's like, if you read the bill, you'll see it. Now, why am I raising this? I've shared before that the entire panoply of protected classes, the framework initially, and it's amazing to me that in all of this debate, no one wants to even have a conversation about what was the criteria for the original protected classes. I've shared it with you on this program before. It was immediately discernible characteristics on presentation. Meaning nobody had to ask questions. When you enter a room, no conversation necessary. You can see what? Skin color. You can tell that's a woman, that's a man. Immediately with no other conversations. Second category, it was immutable characteristics. Not that I ever would. I walk in the room, you see me, you see this gloriously melanated skin that God blessed me with. No matter how much you try to Sammy Sosa it, it's not going to change. Immediately discernible, immutable characteristics combined with these next two categories. A historical evidence of political disenfranchisement. Can somebody explain to me when there has ever been, in recent memory, a political issue where the LGBTQ political agenda was not advanced? I mean, hello? And you compare that to the struggle for people whose skin color like mine, starting in 1619 before the US of A was formed, but following the formation of the United States of America under the Constitution, all the way up to the Civil Rights Acts or the civil rights movement of the 1960s, through the civil rights movement of the 1860s, there were clear demonstrations of political disenfranchisement. Do I need to remind anybody about the Ku Klux Klan? None of that happened to people politically in America that advocated and supported the LGBTQ political agenda. And then lastly, there was historical demonstration of financial disenfranchisement. People support the LGBT. Do I even need to explain that? These people got more money than you can shake a stick at. None of that applies to the LGBTQ political agenda. Yet, they have jump claimed the struggles of women's suffrage and the struggles of people who are descendants of African slaves in this country and manufactured a victimization notion so that they can accomplish political objectives. And I've warned and I've attempted to warn before I had a platform on AFR. I've warned and warned and warned, and people said, nah, Abraham, come on. This isn't going to happen. I warned that once Obergefell happened, you would see all of a sudden an immediate pivot to transgender ideology being debated. And that is exactly what happened. And folks, listen, here's one of the observations from this H.R. 5 is that they have not provided any exemptions for it for churches, religious organizations, or people with religious liberty. This law will completely gut the Religious Freedom Restoration Act of 1993. It will completely gut the First Amendment. It will set the stage for what happened to Aaron and Melissa Klein in Oregon to happen nationwide. In case you're not familiar with the Kleins case, they were the owners of Sweet Cakes Bakery. They were Christians, similar to Jack Phillips. They provide baked goods for any and everybody. They were asked to do a custom arrangement for a wedding. They said, well, as Christians, we believe a wedding is a sacred institution established by God. A marriage is a sacred institution established by God. I cannot violate my religious beliefs to serve your wedding. You're welcome to anything else we have available to you, but we cannot create a custom service for your wedding. You know what happened? They were sued by the state, fined $135,000, lost their family's business. That will be exported to the whole country. You will have the subjugation of the rights of women and girls, where you just had, I talked about on the program, the dude powerlifter destroying women's records. Thankfully, that weightlifting federation has reversed that decision. But then you have the situation in Connecticut where you have a 16-year-old girl who's running track who was denied an opportunity to compete for a college scholarship. Why? Because she was beat by two dudes running in the girls' competition. You're going to have the nullification or the eradication of medical professionals from using their reasoned judgment. The Hippocratic Oath requires them to do no harm. But when a person presents to them having suffered from gender dysphoria, that they recognize that this person has a disassociation between what and who they are and what they think, instead of being able to say, no, we're not going to do the body mutilation surgeries you're asking me to do because I think you need to have some additional help, they will be prohibited from using their own judgment in these scenarios, because if this Tyranny Act, H.R. 5 passes, the medical health professionals will no longer be able to utilize their own consciousness and judgment. You know why? Because a person will say, well, this doctor discriminated against me because of my gender identity in violation of H.R. 5. Folks, this is where we are. This is where we are.
Challenging truth, godly wisdom, and spiritual empowerment. Urban Family Talk.